And we've been talking about Babylon falling. Now I want to talk just a little bit more. We talked last time about World War II and how Germany could be that last or the head of the beast. Let me just start off. Ray, you want to open us up for
My gracious Heavenly Father, we just give you glory and give you praise for this morning. Lord, Father, I just thank you and I praise you, Father God, Brother Dan, bringing your word to us this morning, Father God. Just anoint his lips, Father God, and let it fall on fertile ground this morning, Lord. And we give you all the praise and all the glory for it. In Jesus' name. Amen.
We talked about Babylon so long till let me just mention it, but it's a financial system. It's the way the world's been run by just a few families for centuries. Financially, they use finances to manipulate the nations. And I believe we're witnessing the beginning of Babylon falling. That's that system taken down. But there's also, in Revelation, it talks about the Babylon, the beast, and the false prophet. Now these are separate things. In Revelation 13, verse 3, it said, "And I saw one of the heads as it were wounded to death. The beast has 7 heads, 10 horns." 10 crowns. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded unto death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon that gave power to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is likened to the beast, who is able to make war with him?" But the deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And we're going to read a verse later on that talks about something else about the beast. But if you remember back when Germany was defeated, the United States entered the war. Had the United States not entered the war, Germany had just about took over all of Europe. Well, they had, except for England. The Middle East, and they were on their way through Africa when we got involved in the war. That's where Patton won his first battle, was in Africa against Rommel's troops. So Germany was defeated as a country in World War II. And Japan. But what happened after they were defeated? Well, they rebuilt their country, sure, but they're well known as being some of the best engineers in the world. They make some of the best equipment, machinery in the world. After they were defeated, a lot of their technology, their scientists, their engineers, their scholars were brought to the United States. Thousands of them. And from there, they went all over the world. So, could Germany be the head of that beast that was wounded unto death? We thought it's dead. And he's come back to life. Could the heart of Germany still be alive in the earth today through other countries? And their technology. Werner von Braun is the one that designed the V-2 rockets that they were hitting England with. He helped do that. He came to the United States and helped us shoot rockets into space. It's well known. You just go look it up. He's a German. One of the most atrocious killers the Germans had in their service. I believe he's the one that led their SS and rescued Mussolini. They captured Mussolini, holding him up somewhere. He went in there and got him. After the war, he went and trained Arafat. Remember him?
Yeah.
The little Arab, he caused so much trouble there. And he taught them how to wage the kind of war that they're waging now. He taught them how to do that. But it's not only them, it's scholars also. I mean, Germany had some of the best technology on the face of the planet. Had they had just a little more time through their technology, they could have won the war. They had already developed a jet airplane. All the planes back then were props. They were working on other stuff too. But, you know, it was time for the head to be killed or wounded unto death. But that beast has come back. And that technology, those people, when they came, brought their philosophies with them. A lot of the old Nazis wound up in Argentina. And here. But Argentina, they set up whole cities where all they spoke was German. They're still there today, their descendants. The internet was invented by our military. Now remember, our military had the technologies that come from Germany. Now we're not talking about Germany as a country. We're talking about their technology, their philosophy. The internet was invented by our military. The programs that run our computers was invented by our government. Bill Gates didn't come up with Microsoft. That little squirty dude that runs Facebook, he didn't start that. It was started by our government and handed off to them. Well, how do they control them? They're billionaires. You do what we tell you to do, we're going to take all the money away from you. Be the end of you. Give it to somebody else. Facebook and Twitter. Have y'all ever seen that guy that owns Twitter?
He's scary.
He just look him up. Get a good look at him. Just look at him. You ain't gonna listen to what he says. What he says is crazy. What they're spouting is German philosophy.
Yes.
Think about it. Germans censored free speech. What's happening now? It's already happening in a lot of other countries. It's happening here now. If you say something Facebook don't like, you're off. Twitter, they threw the President of the United States off of their platform. They control the news media. Hitler controlled everything the Germans heard. North Korea's doing it now. China's doing it now. A lot of the Arab countries are doing it now. It's happening here too. If all you watch are major news networks, then I'm going to say 95% of it is what they want you to know. It's not what's happening. That's how Hitler took over Germany. That's their philosophy. That's their playbook. And we're talking about what's going to happen when Babylon falls. It's already happening in communist countries and in a lot of the so-called free countries of the world. There's going to be a change from running the world through finances to the beast is going to run the world. Right now, Babylon is riding the beast, controlling the beast. The financial system is controlling the nations. But when that financial system collapses, the nations will fill that void. The nations will rule the world. What's an organization right now that's already been established and can step up and take that position? The United Nations. The mechanism is already in place to do it. And the financial wizards, the bankers, we could go back in history and I could show this to you, where these bankers, and it's not the local banks, okay? And when I say bankers, I'm talking about world, the big boys, not the local, not Farmer State Bank or Shelby Savings, anybody like that. You know, there are people just, they're like us. But I'm talking about the ones that run global economy. They run whole countries. The central bank in this country is owned by bankers. It's not a government. Well, Trump put it back under the Treasury. But before he did that, the central bank loans the United States money, and the taxpayers pay it back through the IRS. The bankers own the country through the financial system. When they shell out trillions of dollars of stimulus, what happens? Groceries go up, gas goes up, everything goes up. Inflation pays for the stimulus. Plus taxes will go up too. So you see how the financial system, now when that financial system comes down, it might be good for a while. And I'm looking for it to be good for a while. Because what I'm hearing talk about, I mean, it's going, what's it going to be like when Antichrist takes over? It's going to be worldwide calamity. And somebody's going to step up and cure all that. And everybody's going to fall down and worship him. Now, I'm not talking about getting down on our knees and worship it, but if we just support it, that's like worshiping. So don't think when Babylon falls, that's the end. It's not. The nations will rise up and take Babylon's place. That's the way Satan controls people. Babylon controlled through finances, but the beast will control the nation, the nations. Satan will control the nations through oppression, regulation, shortages, pestilence, plagues. There's new variants of virus. There's infections coming out now. I know people that's been Bruce Dingy, they've been looking for what's wrong with them for I don't know how long. They don't know what's going on. Can't figure it out. A lot of people's had infections, and they throw everything at it they can. It don't work. Not working. When all this mess first started, Brother Don says, this is a plague. He's buying a pulpit. This is a plague. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know so much about that. Well, I've had time to chew on it, and it is a plague. It's not the plague, it's one of them. There's going to be a bunch of them. There's already shortages in the grocery stores, and the prices going up. There's ships sitting off our coast that can't get unloaded. Farmers are being paid not to grow their stuff. So it's going to be shortages. Not only is the prices going to rise, there's going to be some things we can't buy. And I'm not saying this to scare anybody. We just need to know what's going on and know it's part of the plan. It's wrote right here in the book.
It's already happening in England, that's what I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lines and put on top of that, if you hadn't had your shot, they're not letting you in some of those grocery stores. Sicily, which is part of Greece, it's an island off of Greece. Paul went there preaching, but it's part of Greece. Well, Sicily is full on. You can't hardly go anywhere if you hadn't been vaccinated.
There is already variances of this so-called COVID stuff.
Yeah,
Even those who have had shots have come down with
yeah.
a variant. So what's Walmart gonna do? Tell us we gotta have 10 or 20 shots?
Yeah.
That's what they put on the news the other day. They want you to have a shot once a month.
That one Walmart said that though.
That was our government said that.
Brother Dan, you've been watching the news, and all over people are dying over in other countries
Yeah.
from floods, landslides.
The shot.
Every time you turn around, you're in it.
Yeah.
And if people don't see it, something's wrong.
You know, I'm just talking about, there's gonna be natural disasters to go along with all this. All that stuff I'm talking about man-made, but it's part of God's plan. But it's all this is man-made. Rand Paul's already proven that Fauci won't give the money to Wuhan to develop that virus. He's already proved it. We knew it anyway, but he's proved it now. He lied to Congress.
Satan's at work.
Our money developed the virus. That's the bottom line. They used our money. Babylon used our money to develop the virus. And they also developed a vaccine for the virus. I'm going to say Bill Gates, but it's really our government. Bill Gates provided a software that every computer on the planet used. Then he developed a virus. You're not going to hear this everywhere. He developed a virus to mess up your computer, but wait a minute, I've got a cure for it. Does that sound familiar? He's doing the same thing with people he did with a computer, but it's really not him, it's the one holding it. I use his name because he's the one that's going to get hung, maybe, but it's not just him. You can't hang this on one person, it's Babylon. It's the whole system. That's how they control people. First is fear. What came first? Fear.
Yeah.
That virus is real. A bunch of us had it. It ain't nothing to play with. It's real. It's killing folks. They don't care how many they kill. It is real. But there's cures for it. There's a country, and I couldn't think of who it was, Sweden or a small country, where they had almost zero fatalities.
Sweet.
Sweden, they were using ivermectin, I believe.
They were
You can
using-
buy ivermectin in Tractor Supply. They put it in animals. You probably shot your dog with it before. Well, it's the same thing. It kills the virus. What were they telling us, though? Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, it's dangerous. When Victor gets something, he goes up to Bo's feet and gets I forget what it is. He buys it off the shelf.
Yeah.
How Rand Paul, I watched these. I watched Rand Paul put Fauci on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And Fauci was saying, you don't know what you're talking about. He's sitting there shaking, you know. You don't know what you're talking about. Rand Paul's a doctor. He read right out of their own paper. He said, the definition of gain of function research was banned by law in our government. And Rand Paul said right there and nailed it to the wall. He said, you funded the lab in Wuhan, China, to develop a virus that was an animal virus, was found in animals only, and developed it to contact humans. They manufactured it so it would attack humans. By definition, that's gain of function. Nailed it to that chair. And there will absolutely nothing come of it. But he proved right there that our own government, Babylon, funded the plague. You could just keep going, keep bringing up stuff, Go back hundreds of years. It's been going on a long time. It ain't just now started, but it's worldwide. God's had enough of it. I believe we're going to see Babylon fall. Let me read another scripture. I'm not reading very many scriptures because we've read all this before. But we're applying it to what's going on in the world today. This last week has been one of the best revivals I've ever been in.
Amen, I agree.
And I say best because there's been good revivals before, but this one's different. I don't know how many people from different places, different churches, with different signs out in front of them, all came here all week long.
Yes, it did.
And we had a great time. Everybody I talked to did. I didn't hear anybody griping about anything except got tired by the end of the week. Which I did too. But we had a good revival. While all this is going on in the earth, there's going to be revival in the land.
Man.
We're going to see people that we love to see people come in here that we may have to adjust our thinking a little bit. When Trish was talking the other night, she had a rubber band. God stretches sometime. Before that night was over with, I got stretched some. He might be stretching some. I've been talking about a lot of junk going on, and we need to, but there's also good stuff going on too. in chapter 17, verses 11, it says, and the beast that was and is not, even is the 8th, and is of the 7th. And go with any tradition. If Germany was the 7th, that was wounded unto death, and it come back as the 8th, the 7th, it's of the 8th, so the 8th comes out of the 7th. Well, I just explained how Germany's technology, their scientists, their teachers, their philosophy is worldwide, and in this country too. And we hadn't even realized it. All these technological advances of the 20th century, oh, look how great we are. No, it's all part of Babylon. And it said in Daniel that in the end times, knowledge would increase. And we've always thought, and it is, technology. We've seen it. But it's also knowledge of the Word of God. We're getting things out of the Bible now that have been hidden in it for centuries. Probably the apostles knew it, but they lost it. It's been lost to the church and it's coming back out. We're learning stuff now. We're seeing things now. I haven't never heard anybody talk about it. There's going to be a worldwide turmoil. I wouldn't doubt there's some kind of war break out. When Babylon starts down, they're going to go down kicking, screaming. And have you ever tried to tame an unruly grown-up child? I mean, a little kid will throw herself on the floor, kick, scream, cry, and squall, and throw its toys, but the grown-up will tear the whole house down. I know. That's what Babylon's going to do. When they start down, they're going to tear everything they can all to pieces. They ain't going to go down quiet. They're not going to give up. Got too much to lose. So it's going to get rough when they start losing their finances. They still got people in places of control. Look at Canada. They just about locked down their whole country. You know, Victor went up there, he was going to go to work. And they said, well, you can't come in here unless you had your shot and all that. He said, well, I'll see y'all later. I'm going back home. And they called him twice to find out if he's quarantined. He's supposed to quarantine for 2 weeks. He said, no, I ain't quarantined. I'm in Texas. I'm not in Canada. So it's going to get to where they're going to put so much pressure on people. It started out with fear. Then it was incentives, if you'll do this or that. Then they put pressure. Next, it's going to be threats. That's how the devil operates. He's going to try to get you to come along with him easy. But if that don't work, he threatens. Now, what's it going to come down to? When somebody making good money and they're up to debt, up to their eyeballs, and they just barely making it, but they got a good job, and that job tells them you got to do this or that, or you're going to lose your job. It'll be like that rich young ruler Jesus talked to. Jesus told him, you lack one thing. Turn loose of those riches and come follow me.
That's gonna be bad if they get a hold of Social Security.
Well, it could happen.
It could.
Me and Ann's talked about that. And we're living off Social Security. Yeah. And they sure don't care nothing about us because we ain't paying no taxes no more.
Oh, and we're old.
Well, we're not productive anymore, so they don't care about us.
That's what they think.
That's what I'm thinking. So,
We weren't born yesterday.
well, that's another reason they don't need us around.
But it's gotta be the people like, the older folks like us that are gonna have more wisdom. Because these young kids, and I say young kids, a lot of them in their 40s, don't have a clue.
No, they don't.
They just don't.
But, you know, they don't know how to use their head and think.
Neither does the man that's running the country know how to fight.
You have to have a brain first.
Well, they blame it on something, but he's always been that way. I saw him 30 years ago. He wasn't making no sense back then.
It's a puppet on the string.
It's a short strike.
Well, it sounds like we're going through tribulation, and it's going to get worse. So what are we supposed to be doing while all this is going on?
You're into the end.
Yeah. Endure to the end, spread the gospel, stay connected to Jesus. You can look at what Jesus said in Matthew 24. We read these scriptures a lot. I'm going to just read a few of them. In Matthew 24, Jesus said, take heed that no man deceive you. It's pretty easy to be deceived whenever all the information you got them coming to you. They're lying to you, trying to push you or pull you. Steve, how do you herd them horses in the shoe?
I bribe. You get a bucket of feed, you can do just about anything you want.
Or does that sound like a scenario?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Just like money. Money talks to us.
Well, if you don't, you have to have a shoe. Just point them in. I think about when Walmart had their one door shut and the other door, they had a chute going into that door. I said, well, let's get a line like a herd of cows, you know. 6 foot apart. Take heed that no man deceive. And he goes through Jesus goes through a whole list of things. In verse 14, he said, in this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come. Well, all these things Jesus said, we've already seen. We've seen. Is the gospel being preached to all nations? Yeah, has been. I can take my phone and see what somebody's doing on the other side of the world. I mean, it's available to them. There's churches in China, underground churches. And they kill Christians up there. I mean,
That's scary.
that's going on in a lot of countries. And Matthew 1 through 28 talks about great tribulation. In verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars shall fall from heaven, the powers of the heavens be shaken. Then shall appear the Son of the Son of Man in heaven. Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. He will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. They shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. That's the rapture. After that tribulation. It's after we go through some tribulation, but it's before the wrath of God. You know, some people might hear me say that and they'll think, well, you're post-trib, pre-trib, mid-trib, and all that business. There's tribulation going on out there now. It hasn't been ever since Jesus came. Jesus talked about great tribulation. when the wrath of God hits the earth, it's gonna be something that had never happened before. And we're not gonna be here. The elect will be taken out of the way. It'd be like the days of Noah. They'll be married, given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, until the day that Jesus takes us out of here. They knew not till the flood came and took them away. When we're taken out of here, it's going to be rough. Now, we'll look at some more stuff next week, but the point is, we've been talking about Babylon falling, and we're beginning to see that. Somewhere between Babylon falling and the beast and the Antichrist taking over, and we may see that, I don't know, the beginning of it. Somewhere in that time frame, we're going to be taken out. Jesus said if those days hadn't been short, there wouldn't be any flesh left on earth. And when it happens, it's going to start happening fast. In one day, Babylon will come down. That's what we read several Sundays. But then boom, boom, boom. And I think we're here. And you know, people said that ever since Jesus was here. But we've seen all these things. Jesus said, when you see all these things, know that it's at the door. It's fixing to happen. We won't know the day or the hour, but we can see the signs, because Jesus said, when you see all these things happening, know it's near. Are all these things happening? So, that's all I got.